Good evening to all. I speak for the entire Indian research and insights community when I share my immense happiness and pride as I introduce the chief guest for the 30th annual MR seminar. We are privileged to have with us the Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal. He needs no introduction. He is Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumers Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Textiles, and also leader of the Rajya Sabha. He has also held the portfolio of Minister of Railways, Finance, Corporate Affairs, Coal, Power, New and Renewable Energy, and Mines previously. In his tenure of Ministry on Commerce and Industry, India has achieved its highest ever exports of about 675 billion USD in 21-22. He led the signing of a free trade agreement with the UAE, the fastest ever negotiated FTA globally, and the India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, India's first agreement with a developed country in a decade. He has also received the 4th annual Carnot Prize in 2018, recognizing the path-breaking transformations in the Indian energy industry. We know much of this. This is no secret to any of us in the room. Perhaps what is less known is Mr. Goyal's brilliant academic record. He is an All India second rank CA chartered accountant and second rank holder in law from Mumbai University. He was well known as an investment banker and has advised top corporations on management growth and strategy. Sir, dare I draw a parallel with our fraternity? Perhaps like CAs, historically market researchers have been shy, unsung heroes, dismissed as backroom boys and girls, compared to our more confident brethren in advertising and marketing. I think we will all remember this moment as an industry where we had an opportunity to have you here to address us, and in fact, we can now stand in the spotlight, be confident, claim that we are one amongst the many industries that leads this country, and this will be a moment we will not forget for a long time. Thank you, sir. Flowers.
Thank you very much for that generous introduction. Probably a little exaggerated, but anyway, it was factual. But lovely to be amongst all of you assembled here for the 30th annual seminar. Participants from the market research community from across the country. And I must say, I agree with Madam when she says that this is an industry which has remained unsung, unrecognized, probably, I would also add, not yet understood for the tremendous capabilities and strengths that you all have. And therefore, I'm truly delighted to be amongst all of you distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to meet you and get to know more about your organization, as I was learning when I sat with your managing committee members. I'm sorry I'm a little late, but lots of work happening in different areas. The least of it is your routine day-to-day work, the more pressing needs of elections around the corner, and of course, the wonderful things that are happening in our country, which has actually been recognized and respected across the world in terms of our post-COVID fight back, and now the deft management of the economy in the era of war through which most developed countries also are facing a lot of stress, where India looks like that bright spot, that shining star. But of course, that's for you to tell us based on your market research. And we've been engaged with some of you for many years in different forms, in different areas of operation. We've, even in our electoral work or in the ministerial work, I've had an occasion to work with many of your companies or your members at different points of time, and I've tremendously benefited from the engagement with your industry. And I have Pradeep Gupta sitting right here in front of me. Access My India probably would be one of the only Indian MR companies which has a case study today at Harvard Business School for the accurate calling out of elections consistently, one after the other, for probably all of the last 7 or 8 years that I've known him. And over this period, I think the entire industry in India has matured quite significantly. I see a lot more use of technology. I see a lot more analytical skills or AI being used in the work that your members are doing. And I can today also connect a lot in the different areas of my work with the outcomes that you produce. For example, to assess which industries somebody should be investing in, or where the export markets are, or where a plant should be located, ideally. For all of those areas related to commerce and industry, I'm sure you can come up with some very, very insightful comments, very insightful information, which can be very useful for people in business, for our industry participants, for our exporters. Similarly, when we distribute food to 80 crore people, and today we are not only giving out food under the National Food Security Program, but also under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, which has ensured that no child has slept hungry through the very trying times of COVID. Something that I think every Indian is proud of, that probably one of those rare countries in the whole world where we did not find any food shortages, we did not find any riots, we did not find people breaking down department stores or street shops to try and grab whatever they could. I mean, I'm sure you've seen pictures of that happening in the most developed and the largest economies of the world also. But India truly, through this period, has been able to meet the needs of the people of India. And a lot of that feedback comes out of some or the other research that people like you are doing, who give us the feedback that what are the pain points, what are the areas of concern, which are the areas one should focus on. And I do believe that while Madam was saying you have kept a very low profile, I don't see any reason for you to keep a low profile. I would on the contrary say all of the advertising that is happening and all of the market making that is going on, marketing activities, actually would be resting on what you are advising them. Where the markets are, what the people want to hear. At least we in public life or in politics use your inputs very extensively. What are the subjects which are bothering the people? What are the topics on which we should talk when we go out campaigning? What are the areas of concern on which our government policy or government programs should be centered to be able to serve the people of India? For all our work, both in government or in our political arena, I think the work that you are doing is extremely important. And therefore, I do hope you will adopt new technologies, come up with relevant and more practical ways in which to come out with hard facts, but intelligent facts. For example, we were just chatting and I was being told about the extensive use of technology and the use of digital means, or let's say through the net or through online surveys, you're able to cover a much larger population or a much larger geographical area, possibly also at lower cost. But I, for one, would worry if you were to give me only a digital survey. While I would be very happy that it would also have resonance, technology will have resonance when we are doing physical survey to know that the enumerator actually went there with the GIS mapping or with the technology that he carries in his hand, and he marks out the data of the person he's talking to. But if the survey itself was to be online, in the United States of America, I can still understand that it can have maybe a more resonance with the reality. But in India, I would still think the body language and the personal connect, even today, would be very significantly relevant. And very often when I see these electoral surveys coming on television with a sample size of 2,000 or 5,000 respondents, sometimes even more, but mostly on the telephone or mostly through an online survey, I really fear for its outcomes, for the inaccuracies it can give us, and for the credibility loss that your industry will suffer because of that. I mean, if at all somebody does that and has a very, very high degree of understanding of India, by which he can use algorithms or AI to extrapolate that result to bring in accuracy, that would be a very high degree of technology which I don't know if any of our Indian companies has as yet cracked. Because look at the diversity of incomes, the diversity and spread of language, the dialect within a state being different from one village to the other. The fact that very often different strata of society thinks differently, and I'm sure on the phone or on the net, you're not going to ask him to tell you first what his income is. And even if you do, you have no way of verifying what accuracy he has put in. And I would think that given the complexities of a large nation like India, with the last reported number being 141 crore population, as diverse as India, my own sense is while we adopt technology, we must also adopt it intelligently, smartly, and make sure that we don't lose the essence of our work and the outcomes. Particularly when the big companies come with very flashy charts, graphs, all those infographics and all, I get very intimidated, I get very scared. Because there may be very good presentations, but I worry for its real resonance on the ground. And I think the best way to understand this is to go into the rural parts of India. I don't know how many of you actually send your teams right up to the villages or the kasbahs or the hamlets around the villages to understand the real story of India, to understand how important pricing is. I'm told that 1 rupee sachet came out of some of your surveys only, where you probably advised, I don't know, was it Levers who first came out with it or was it the Pan Parags of the world? Levers. But truly, I mean, as a chartered accountant, when I calculate the grammage of what is in that 1 rupee pouch and compare it with the bottles that we get at home, when I feel as a consumer affairs minister, I should be extremely worried because my consumer is getting jilted. But then there is another reality, that there is an aspirational India which also wants to use a shampoo, which also wants to use the goodies of life which he sees on internet or he sees on television advertised in a big way. And therefore you have come up with a solution, albeit very expensive in terms of packaging cost and distribution cost, which has helped multiply your market or your customers' market and help take these things to the remotest parts of the country. And it has its flip side. So maybe it's the frugal mindset and somewhat Indian mindset also. But when I go to a hotel, or maybe if I was to be staying in the Leela and I would be seeing those bottles of shampoo and conditioner and liquid soap, I very often wonder that what happens to this after I leave the room? Is it all wasted? Do they recycle it? Because if they recycle it, then I'm really worried. But if it's wasted, I'm doubly worried. Small things. But these are the things where probably organizations like yours can help us come up with better solutions, better ideas. The other day at the Oberoi, I think in one of the good hotels, I saw actually they have also introduced in a very high-paying room the whole bottle over there, the big bottle where you just take out whatever quantity you need. And I think while it may not look very nice, maybe it may not look like a 5-star or the high luxury element on it, but I thought it was very practical. And in that sense, your sachets, whoever thought of it or whoever came up with that idea, also is quite a practical solution. The wastage in that must be significantly lower if it was to become a part of, let's say, hospitality where people are traveling. Why I'm sharing all this with you is because you really can play a big role in taking the good things of life to the people of India, help those who cannot afford many things also get a chance to enjoy the fruits of modern products, goods, services, and yet make sure that we are not moving into a high waste economy. Our lifestyle still continues to remain sustainable, something which Prime Minister Modi has been talking about at length on many different fora, including at the G20, and which is also going to be a part of our G20 as we have now taken over the presidency, and from 1st December, India will have the presidency of the G20. I think lifestyle for environment or sustainable lifestyle is something that all of us also should be equally concerned about. Now, I know that most of you now use your iPads or laptops while doing your data collection also, which is good. You are saving on paper. Those old days when you had sheaves of papers and maybe 8, 10 page questionnaires, A, was not only inefficient, it was prone to mistakes. B, the analytical part was any case done in the computer, so you were transferring that into computers. If you are not doing that, then the analytics was certainly missing. And very often just a clinical survey or a clinical market research really doesn't give you the best result. You got to calibrate it for the male-female ratios, for the different income levels, and that personal element does help us also assess what is being claimed to be the income. Because in our country, we would have people who may not like to share with you on a phone that his income level is X. He may like to exaggerate it to 3X or 5X. Who knows? I remember we had once done a survey, and we keep doing a lot of surveys in industry for our startup ranking, or for the logistics ranking, or for the ease of doing business ranking. And in one of the surveys, I found the results were truly at odds with what our perception was. Drastically at odds. And I just couldn't accept that this could be a realistic result. When I got into the detail of it, you'll be amazed at what I found. I found that we had telecallers who were making the phone calls. Initially, they were all in English. Then when it came to our attention, they moved into Hindi and English, assuming that at least within the two languages we'll cover the entire country. And what we found was that many of the respondents were not comfortable with either of the two, particularly in certain states. And then when they moved to respondents in smaller towns or smaller areas, the rural areas, they just could not understand the dialect and therefore either did not bother to give a response or the responses were vastly different from the reality on the ground. And we actually landed up with survey results which were no good after spending hours and hours and a lot of painstaking work. It almost became a piece of academic research rather than real work that could give us some outcomes. So I do hope and believe that all of you are conscious of this reality in the Indian context. But as your colleagues were telling me, 2/3 or 75% of your revenue is even today in foreign exchange, which means you must be doing a lot of work for foreign companies. I think we also have a big potential. Post-COVID, we've learned our lessons that to do work, at least in the developed economies, you don't need to physically be present there. And for example, if it was Europe or if it was the United States, and for that matter, even Japan, which is a big market. And in these countries, I would think most surveys, probably you all know better, but I'm assuming most surveys must be digital. I suspect they cannot afford to send people. And I don't know whether they'll find people also to sit and spend time with them and do a survey. So surveys must be online or on the telephone. And I'm sure if we improve our language skills in the 300 odd members that you have, if we were to look at improving our language and accent skills, we would be able to get a large pie of that market, because sitting in India and then sitting even in tier 2, tier 3, 4 cities with tools of analysis which would be available with many of you, because I know that many of you are also international companies. I believe even the Indian companies today are using AI and ML and all in a big way when they're doing research. I think if you develop good tools, you would be able to compete with your own companies or your own parent companies, or possibly supply that service to your parent company for the developed markets, so that the work is done out of India, the cost can significantly be lower, you can earn much more foreign exchange than the current size of the business that you are running. I believe I'm told that you have a $2.7 billion revenue in this industry. My own sense is you have not even come to the inflection point. There must be huge potential. And I would think, don't look at only the Indian potential. India also must be having much more potential. It's how you're going to market yourself to the advertisers and to the consumer-facing companies. Also to government, if you ask me. Because if I get good feedback on what the consumers are concerned about, I may be actually in a position to regulate businesses better to serve consumer interests. If you were to get us feedback on, let's say, particular areas where there's potential or where imported goods are coming into India, I may be able to get more investment into India to meet the demand or needs of Indian consumers. So government also can get a lot of benefit. Maybe a group of you or some of you could think and come to us with suggestions on how we can use your services in a bigger way. But of course, please come with a cost-benefit analysis also. But I'm sure advertisers and business and industry can benefit hugely from your research, from your interface with the market, your interface with consumers or the people at large. You may be able to give good feedback on whether people like glass bottles or they still want to go back to plastic bottles. You can possibly also give us feedback or give industry feedback like you did on the sachets, on the packaging. The other day I saw Parle biscuits also in much smaller packs. And I thought that was very convenient. You could actually carry it in your pocket, and that's something I love to eat when I'm hungry. It's probably the best meal you can get, a Parle G biscuit with a cup of coffee, or actually rather not a cup of coffee, tea or coffee, kaanch ke glass mein, so that it remains hot and you can enjoy it. And no more wholesome meal than that when you're out campaigning and you've not had a meal for many hours. So I do think these are your contributions. I'm assuming somebody amongst you might have recommended to Parle or to the Chauhans that while you have a great product, a great package, I find their regular was also a very good package. But the smaller one is even more efficient for its ability to be carried in the pocket. 5 rupees.
They are maintaining 5 rupees price point.
And they keep reducing the biscuits. Well, that's your marketing story. I'm not going to interfere in that, and don't worry, neither is the Consumer Affairs Ministry. We only want you to be honest in the product that you're marketing. So if you're marketing, 50 grams, you say 50 grams. If you're making it 45 grams, please boldly and loudly announce it's now 45 grams. While, it's the rest is your business, not ours for being bothered about. But what bothers me very often is when we see misleading advertisements. That's something which certainly is something we're going to come down heavily on. I've had cases where I've actually been watching television and finding fault with some of the advertising, and simple case in point is these mutual funds and insurance companies. So your whole advertisement was at a particular pitch and a particular speed, but when they wanted to give the risk factors, I don't think any of us could understand what they're saying. But I do believe I had asked my office to interfere, and I think something has happened, because I saw a few ads in the last few days where I saw the risk factors also being read out at the same speed at which the marketing portion of the advertisement was. While it may seem a small thing to some of you, I think we have to be honest in our work. We have to give it as it is. And that's what we believe your industry is famous for. And that's why we trust you. The fact that you show the mirror to your client, whatever it is. It may be bad news. It may be his market share is dwindling. As sometimes you tell us your vote share is falling. So that we can take the right action to correct or course correct and get back into the game. And I think that high level of integrity is something that I'm sure as your code of ethics or your own internal regulation you must be having. I do hope you have some sort of a self-regulation mechanism, because I find that whichever bodies do the self-regulation smart and honestly and have a code of ethics which you implement, A, government will then not interfere in your work. B, the credibility of the industry helps individual businesses also get more work. And C, of course, that's our duty as ethical business persons, that we don't misrepresent the facts. We give it honestly, truthfully, and we caveat wherever we think that there's a margin of error. So, I mean, you don't run a survey with 2,000 people, all India, and then say that this is representative of the Indian taste or Indian market. I would suspect it would be near impossible. At least in politics or in our election surveys, I have found, or maybe I may be right or wrong, I don't know, but I have found 1,000 or 1,100 to be the right size of sample when we are covering a certain election, to be able to get a reflection of the people's mood. And I'm not talking of a Lok Sabha election, I'm talking of the smaller elections. In the Lok Sabha, probably the size needs to be much larger, or maybe 1,080 or whatever we do every assembly constituency. And I can only tell you this, I've used many of your companies in different size or shape or form over a period of time now, certainly for the last 10, 12 years, to very good effect. So you have one satisfied consumer standing before you, as must be many, many, many more all across India and across the world. I wish all of you well in your business. I wish you lots of success in your ethical, high standard outcomes that you are sharing with the country and with businesses in India. I do hope you will continue to remain on that path. I would encourage you to focus more on self-regulation, and certainly I would encourage more of you to see how this size of the industry can expand, so that the next time around when I come to your program, instead of telling me that you have about 115,000 to 150,000 persons engaged in this industry, I think the next time you invite me, sir, I hope you will invite me when you have 1 million people working in this industry. My best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So we would like you to inaugurate this report, which is about the size of the Indian industry.
Open. Do you have an open copy?
Yeah, can you give me an open copy, Sandeep, Rakshit?
It's almost packaged to make sure nobody can open it.
It's like the shampoo sachet.
Yeah, that's also very difficult to open. तो आपने seal भी कर दिया यार किसी ने?
We wanted you to be on the stage for longer.
This one has a packet.
No, this is okay. If I can hand it over to you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I think it's been, sir, it's been an absolute honor to have you with us for this program today as a chief guest. I think the points that you made reflect the understanding that you have of our industry, but also of the Indian consumers. There are two things that have remained with me, which in your own words, one is hard data, but intelligent data. And which means that whether the sample sizes, the language in which you do the consumers, combination of offline and online, hard data but intelligent data, in your own words. The other thing that you mentioned, which has remained with me, is that through your services, bring everything that's good in India to everyone in India. So I think through the surveys that we do, through the analytics that we do, through the insights that we provide to our businesses, how can we make sure that everything that's good is provided to everybody who's in India? I think these two messages sort of summarize things that you said and your understanding, and reflects your understanding of this country and understanding of what we do as an industry. Now, you also sort of challenged us, provoked us, inspired us to do a couple of things, which I must say, that how are we making sure that we do the data collection and do we do the analysis in the right way? Now, one of the roles that, or the key role that MRSI, Market Research Society of India, does is to raise the professional standards of the industry. And therefore, what's the right way of doing the survey? What's the right way of asking the questions, etc. The fact that you must ask the questions in the language and hire local people in different geographies to do the surveys, etc., are part of the professional standards, and they're part of the code of conduct that we have. And all the MRSI members have to abide by the code of conduct. So we make sure that we're raising the standards of professionalism in the industry, and we assure you that with our efforts, our industry definitely will be bigger size next time when you come around. But thank you very much.